can be in trouble very quickly, can't we, as people? And find ourselves into trouble in unexpected places. Some years come to Thanksgiving and may want to take Thanksgiving away from our series, but I think today this is actually very appropriate to talk about on Thanksgiving. Because Peter is writing to people who are going through a very tough time. Sometimes it's easier to be thankful in tough times, you know. In this, he starts saying, here you are, and here is who you are in Jesus. Because God sees our potential, not where we're at. In the last couple of weeks, we've talked about, first, a starting line in the Christian life, which is the call to salvation. Last week, we got to the finish line. And that's a statement about where we're headed. That God has a plan. He's moving us to His glorious salvation, which we know in part now and we will know fully within eternity. We got the starting line, we got the finish line. Today we're going to come to the midpoint of the race because the midpoint is the hardest part of the race. There is something exciting at the starting line, something that draws me to the race. And there is glory at the finish line, but what keeps me going? When my brain starts telling me, give up. We're done. You can't go any further. You've tried hard. But boy, this is a tough part of the race. What do? We get to that moment where the muscles ache, where fatigue is taken over. And in the Christian life, we need to remember what brought us to the starting line and the glory of the finish line. It's why it's so important to spend time thinking of gratitude. We tend to think that gratitude is all about full tummies and plenty of food on the table. And sometimes when times are good, it's hard to be grateful. Apathy is a little easier. And there is some danger in some of our celebrations where we don't turn our heart to gratitude, where it becomes all about the food, where it becomes all about, what's in front of me, and entitlement sets in. Not gratitude, but entitlement. I'm entitled to this. This is what I should have. This is what I deserve. In hard times, like what they're describing with Peter, when I might be starting to wonder about myself, where the world certainly feels against us, where there's all sorts of things going wrong that we need, and find this desperate need to cling to what is good. And to find good even where the world says we're crazy. And it's easy sometimes for the world to think we're crazy for finding gratitude in different places. There was a story of two young boys. They had their big Thanksgiving meal on Sunday. Monday rolled around, and nobody's going to do this year, but one older brother saw the younger brother going out to the garden with bird seed and starting to put it in the ground, and he asked him, "Why are you putting bird seed in the ground?" And he said, "Well, I'm trying to grow next year's Thanksgiving turkey." In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials. That sound like a Thanksgiving message? In this you rejoice, though for now for a little while, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials. In this, those first few words, it's referring back to what's just happened, which is the starting line, this call to salvation, this finish line, this statement, God is taking you somewhere and it's glorious. It is wonderful. God's taking you there. In this you rejoice. That word rejoice, man, that is a very plain word. What does that word rejoice mean? So I usually do a lot of study getting ready for Sunday. So this week I was thinking about rejoicing. I pulled out a very exciting Greek-English lexicon. Man, this is a good read. This is volume 2. No, it's volume 1, sorry. I'll look up the word rejoice. Interesting. A state of intensive joy and gladness, often implying verbal expression and body movement. For example, jumping, leaping, dancing. To be extremely joyful, to rejoice, extremely extreme gladness. Goes through all this. Did you catch all this? It's jumping for joy. Literally, that's what the Greek says. We jump for joy, even though for a little while we might suffer. Jump for joy. The best I can come up with is there's a big hockey game going on. The big goal is scored. You jump up in the air and throw your fist in the air. Now, if you're an Oiler fan, you haven't done that in a long time. But that's the idea. It is jumping, fists clenched up in the air. Yes! That is literally, we've made it very weak. Because we don't like verbal, loud expressions, and the English doesn't catch it very well. But it is literally, in this you jump for joy. That is the literal translation. It's the last time you jumped for joy. The word here is strong. Things might be bad for a little while. Rejoice in those moments. Later in this book, we're going to come across even where it uses the same word, rejoice. Jump for joy in your suffering. Jump for joy in your suffering. Why? Because it's temporary and it's got a purpose. Exodus 17, tremendous story. Israel's just come out of the land of Egypt. God has done great miracles. They walked through the Red Sea on dry land. Everything's gone good. They get out and they discover they don't have enough water. And the words that we discover in Exodus 17 are the same words that we've got in 1 Peter about trials. There's a trial there for them. They're learn a lesson about God's faithfulness. But in those words in Exodus 17, it says they do the opposite. Instead of God trying them to try to forge their faith a little bit further, which is some of the words we're going to get to in a minute, instead, they put God on trial. God, what are you doing? God, my life, my day, is not what I expected it to be. It is not what I wanted. What are you doing? It doesn't meet my expectation. Therefore, there is something wrong with the power or the goodness of God. And if God was good and powerful, my life would work out the way that I think it should. And so God is put on trial. We live in a world, in the secular world today, in the Western world, where the momentary happiness is all that matters. And if it isn't happy at this moment, we've got euthanasia or something like that, because it ain't worth living. God says, momentary struggle is nothing compared to the glory of eternity. Forever happiness and joy. And we may be grieved for a period of time for our own good. And the good news is God grieves alongside those who are struggling. He doesn't abandon us. The last time you jumped up for joy because something went wrong? Who jumped for joy when they looked outside this morning? I know some of the little kids did. I gotta say, I didn't. And sometimes it just feels like it's a little bit different. Our world than we want it to be. But maybe sometimes God makes this world hard because this world is not what matters. Maybe we shouldn't care more about this world than the next. That's the idea. So that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes though it is tested by fire. I stop there for a second. I know that's mid-thought. This idea of preparing gold. An idea of a smeltering process where you take a precious metal, you heat it till it's liquid. Let all the impurities float to the top. Take the impurities out. Cool it down. Do it again and again until all the impurities are finally gone, till it is pure. And the person who is leading the smelting process can look down at the liquid gold and see their reflection. I've told that story before, that that's what is meant by refining gold. In the end, you have a strong and pure metal. It's like that. It takes a lot of effort to get something that's valuable to know its full worth. It's the same with oil, right? I mean, maybe we can relate to that a little bit better. I can't just dig down into the ground, find some crude oil and stick it in my gas tank, can I? It actually takes a lot of work to get it to the point where it's refined gasoline. Where things have, the impurities have to be taken out, additives added, and then it's of worth to me. Then it's of value. It produces incredible power when oil is refined to gasoline. And let me ask you, is it worth the struggle to gain something of eternal value? We don't always understand. Maybe because we don't fully understand the last two sermons that I preached. You'll find them on YouTube if you missed them. But the idea is this: here's your salvation. It is so good. And here's where your salvation is leading to. It is beyond value. Maybe we don't understand what all God has done for us. Maybe we spend so much time focused on other things. There is a cost to following Jesus because he's going to take us through a refining process. But is the cost worth it? Absolutely. We have to count the cost of the journey sometimes. Like going on a long road trip with kids. You have to ask yourself, is it worth it? There might be a lot of whining in the back seat. But is the destination worth the journey? And in God's eyes, absolutely. And sometimes we have trouble remembering when we hold on to it, or the value of holding on to it. It's his perfect kingdom. And the problems of today may pull us away very easily. I've used the example before of a paper cut. You get a paper cut? That's all you can focus on, right? Is it a major injury? No. But sometimes that's all we can see is, oh man, that hurts. Even though it really doesn't matter. There's a lot of things in life that pull our attention away from the glory of God. Don't let it. It's okay. Romans 8:18 says, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Listen again to those words. They are critical. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Not even worth considering. Not even worth worrying about. Why? Because God is refining us to bring out something that's better. Something that's better. So we remember that finish line. Okay, we're kind of catching this halfway through a sentence. May be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. May be found to result in praise and glory and honor. It could also be translated, and this is what I read earlier, at the coming of Jesus Christ. This revelation of Jesus Christ. You know, some people will read this and to hear about at the coming of Jesus, this where He's fully revealed to us, where we understand, we come to this culmination of history. And you know, a lot of people start to ask the question, so when does this happen? What's the date on this? When is this going to occur? And it strikes me that in some ways it's the wrong question to focus on. The question we should focus on is where. Where is He going to be revealed? And the answer is within us. See, this isn't something that we just get to take part of. We are fully immersed. And when Jesus Christ comes as King again in His fullness and glory, this isn't just something we witness. This isn't just something we see and, hey, we get some benefits from this. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, the fullness of the beauty of His revelation is going to occur within you. It's not just a political kingdom, an economic kingdom He sets up, although it is. It is fully the glory of God being revealed in the hearts of His believers and living for eternity, fully in His presence, immersed in the glory and love of Jesus Christ, and living it out. The weight of all the sin of the world was poured out on Jesus at that first communion meal. And we're going to come in just a moment to the communion table. I think it's appropriate to do it on Thanksgiving Sunday. And at that first communion meal, Jesus sat down, knowing His suffering that was about to occur, looking around the table at those who were about to deny or betray Him. Knowing that the full weight of hatred was about to crush His heart. We know that He takes the bread and says, "This is my body, broken for you." And as He's doing it, He's envisioning what is about to happen to Himself. And He takes the cup and says, "This is the blood that is poured out for the new covenant, so that we may have a relationship." But knowing what it meant, this wasn't just symbolism, this was what was about to happen. And even knowing what is boiling up in His heart, that He's about to pray to the Father, if there's any other way, take this cup from me. But knowing that He's going to take it because He says, "But not my will, but your will be done." Knowing the full weight of all that is about to happen. And do you know what the most remarkable words of the entire communion meal might be? It's the words, "When He had given thanks." In the midst of the meal, He takes the cup and He says, "When He had given thanks." Why? Because He knew His suffering was doing something great. His suffering was worth it. He keeps at it because it's worth it. Because it works out for the eternal kingdom and glory of God. God is doing something great in your life, particularly if things are going well. Particularly if the world is grumbling around you. Particularly if you're struggling, God is at work. We may not always feel like jumping up and throwing our arms up in the air, but that's what Peter says we should be doing. things are going wrong, it means God's doing something. It means God's at work. So let's come to this table of the ultimate suffering and give thanks. I'm going to invite our elders to come forward. This table represents